All right. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Business Strategy Roundtable. Today we're joined by Josh Hohbein from Centrex IT. And what's I in?
That's LinkedIn. Is that not
Oh, that's
the
cool.
little short and abbreviated? I'm pretty sure. I mean, I could be
I'm
wrong. Maybe it
learning.
needs to
No,
be
you're
LI. So
you're you're
yeah.
hip. I didn't. I got to start. I got to update my game, man. So we've got Josh joining us, and we're going to be doing a little bit of a comparison today between the restaurant industry and the IT industry, and working together to identify what some of the core competencies are in terms of overlap, in terms of behaviors, and whether or not you can predict positive outcomes. Josh, thanks for being here, man. How are
Yeah,
you?
absolutely my pleasure. It's some of my favorite things to do. I know when I was, um, we'll probably get into my backstory, but my restaurant experience always comes up in interviews. When I was looking for jobs and stuff, that was, hey, you have all this tech stuff, but can you explain this restaurant? This period of time where you're at the restaurant, and it made for good stories. But honestly, there's a lot of crossover, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. And I do miss it. Now, it was a funny story. A couple weeks ago, I was actually looking through like Steam for some like restaurant simulator management games. And I'm like, I can't find any. I want, sometimes you just want to play restaurant again. I'm sure, sometimes you do too. You do miss it a little bit. So,
I
yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, missing it is funny. I there was a time in my life I did some paint sales, and in that experience, you get an eye for, oh, this house needs paint, house doesn't need paint, and then when you go through neighborhoods, you kind of see that, just on accident. Now, when I walk into restaurants, I'm like seeing what the wait staff is doing, seeing what the bus folks are doing, and I can't turn it off.
Oh
I just
man.
there's a piece of me that just like sees the operation happening. So I do
100%.
miss it. Yeah.
Uh,
You kind of mentioned it. We're going to be talking about your story, and we're going to be doing the topic of the day. If you're open to it, I'd love to do a little icebreaker with you and just get your opinion on a news story that I saw recently.
oh man, let's go. What do you got?
Okay, 59% of infrastructure attacks are serious, and this was from Info Security Magazine, related to attacks on electricity, water, and that type of thing. Can you speak a little bit to, as like a security-minded person and leader, why that is, and um,
Well,
if it's as
yeah,
accurate and scary as it sounds?
59% seems a little bit low, honestly. I mean, those sort of things that you're talking about is critical infrastructure. Now, obviously, any incident or security event is going to be, serious, and there's monetary stake, or businesses or people's paychecks on the line. But now, when you're talking about utilities such as the energy sector, the water sector, I mean, now we're talking about legitimate human lives at stake, supply chain disruption, etc. And I think that kind of just raises the threat level a little bit. So to me, 59% seems pretty low. I mean, I think any sort of attack on and the critical infrastructure like that should raise some alarm bells, and hopefully uh, we can prevent a lot of that or fighting back. I know being involved with InfraGard at my state level, and working closely with our the CISA representatives and FBI representatives. I mean, that's one of the things that they're always harping on or preaching on, is the critical infrastructure, and making sure that we're sharing information, and the IOCs and TTPs and all of that stuff, because it is a public safety issue at that point.
What is InfoGuard? And then you just said two acronyms. I think it was, I'm not great.
IOCs and TTPs. Yeah. So InfraGard is each state has a chapter. Some states have multiple chapters, but it is a short vetted thing where it's just cybersecurity professionals that are getting together and sharing things. IOCs are indicators of compromise, and TTPs are tactics. Tactics something in procedure. So basically, what are threats, tactics, and procedures? So how are the bad guys getting in? What are they using? And then sharing that, because even though that we might be competitors, different managed service providers or different IT providers or different businesses, like we're all on the same side here. We're trying to
Have a good economy.
guys, right? So regardless of that, like if I see something, obviously sharing it anonymized, not giving out any information, but saying, hey, this IP address, just did this attack, block it, or hey, we're seeing this sort of attack, this phishing attack beyond the warning, and just kind of sharing those things so we can try to stay one step ahead of the threat actors.
Well, thank you for explaining that and being patient with me while I get swarmed by cats.
Oh, hey, mine's here. I got the other one here. So this is the cats are making an appearance.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I consider the ice broken. We've also broken the ice on a little bit of cyber and security conversation. You're a leader in the cyber and security space. You've led teams. You've done a lot. You also have some restaurant experience. I look forward to kind of digging in. I would love if you would start as far back as you're comfortable with your, you don't have to. Well, my
Hey, I mean,
first memory.
we could start all the way back at the beginning at age 14, and I was a busboy at a local restaurant, man. I
We
worked there
should
for,
start there.
yeah. So there's a restaurant my parents always visited growing up, and I turned 14, and hey, I could work, at age 14 here. So started there, and I was there until just before turning 18, so almost 4 years, and worked my way up to the headline cook there. And then from there, that's kind of where I started getting into IT. I did go to like a different restaurant briefly as just a line cook, but then I got into the IT. From there, I worked in a call center doing tech support for an internet service provider, and then went off to college to get a business management degree, but only did about 1 year of that at the university. And then while I was there, I worked at Best Buy, Geek Squad, so still kind of in the tech world, doing that. And then moved back home and back to the call center where I became a team manager. We were doing tech support at that point for a prepaid cell phone company out of the kind of Ohio area. And then from there, I got put on the help desk for the 800 numbers of the United States. I don't really remember much what I did there, but then you know, being the team manager, the call center was kind of on its last legs here. Kind of saw the writing, so did some odd jobs there. Worked in the healthcare sector, doing claims processing for a couple months. Did some direct support for developmentally disabled individuals. I mean, delivered pizzas, delivered papers, odds and ends until I got myself back into the tech world and got my first job at a managed service provider. Back in 2010, 2011. And then from there, I mean, worked there for 6 years, had a second kid. And then at that point, my mortgage was more, or my daycare bill was more than my mortgage. And one of my really good friends is a regional manager at a restaurant franchise. So I was like, hey, I need some extra cash since my wife is staying home. Can I, wait some tables and stuff like that. And so started back doing a second job while working at the managed service provider during the day. And then was kind of, venting to him about how things are going at the current MSP. And he's just like, hey, man, we're opening like 2 new stores. Like, I'd just be a manager and for me, and I'll this is how much you'd make, and you'd only need to work 1 job and all this. So I was like, sure, let's do it, man. So became a manager, started kind of front of house, and then quickly worked my way up to doing a little bit of everything. I was a kitchen manager. I was assistant general manager. I was the actual general manager as part of the restaurant opening team, where we opened 3 stores in about 1.5 years. And then I would actually go to other stores in the franchise to help with their operational efficiency. And as fun as that was, and as much as I did miss it, I mean, it was a lot. I mean, you're working long, long hours. You're constantly like, even your day off, you're on your phone. So I was like, I need to, I want to spend time with the family. So did get back into the MSP world at that point, and then kind of still worked there part-time because it was, A, it's fun, and B, still good to have a little extra cash. But then started working my way up at that managed service provider, from being a tech to cloud solutions, building out the cloud operations from them, and then also starting to build their security, their security operations and the security side. Got moved to grow one of their offices, and then now I'm at my current MSP, Centrex IT, where I was brought on to lead the cybersecurity division and grow it for them. So that's my it's kind of my life story in a nutshell as far as my career goes.
So you've really been back and forth consistently, and even from the standpoint of your journey, like you've taken steps from like being a high level executor and being a lead line cook, then to kind of the lower end of the totem pole in the beginning in the IT space, and then you took a step into management, and then you took a step into management in the IT space, and you really, your entire journey has included both. Is
Yeah.
that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, there's really so many parallels. Obviously, when you're doing like line cook and like doing like tech support, a little bit, not too much there. I mean, you're still talking about, following recipes and following work instructions, things like that. But
Right.
when you're talking like, manager, like working, restaurant and stuff like that, and building out, manager of IT practices, or building out, especially even cybersecurity, there's a lot of correlation on those sort of things. So a lot more than people realize.
When you first got your job at 14, and it's young. Most people, I think it's relatively safe to say, and maybe not, but I think many people's first job comes after high school or after college. There's another subset of people whose first job is when they're 16, 17, 18. Less people go through the process of, now maybe I think you're in North Dakota. I think you're in one of the Dakotas. Um, Maybe it's the regulation on when young people can start working is different, but most people
Mm.
don't take the effort to figure out workers permits and to identify a place that's going to be excited to have them as a young person. Can you talk a little bit about why you were motivated at such a young age to get a busser job?
Yeah.
Because I did the same thing at
Really just, yeah.
local Mexican
Trying to
restaurant.
be in,
Sorry, I
yeah,
got a little
trying
bit.
to be independent. No, you're good. That was kind of the primary of it, is just trying to be independent. And unfortunately, parents were kind of on the strict side, so I was like, hey, if I'm working, that means I'm out of the house doing something. So that was, for better or worse, a really big motivator. But really, it was just kind of the independence. I've always kind of been a pretty independent person, so kind of having that reliance and that drive to do something, and earn my paycheck, and be able to support myself.
Yeah. Another thing that's interesting about your story is you're very clearly somebody that has stick to itiveness and tenacity because you've grown, and you've gotten to a point in two challenging industries where you've had success and where you've been able to lead people. You spent 4 years in one role, as a young person, so you have the clear ability to stay and be consistent, but you've also made the decision to move jobs. Um, I wouldn't say a lot, but a decent number of times at for situations that would be optimal for you. So, can you speak to a little bit about the culture now in the restaurant and the IT world, where there's not so much staying and consistency? And can you talk a little bit about why you had it or have it, and when you choose to use it, and when you chose to not stay, and why?
Yeah. The restaurant one's a little tricky, just because like the turnover there is something to always combat. And especially with like and I don't know about this from other places, but in the Dakotas especially, I mean, you try to be competitive in paying, what the other places do, maybe a little bit more. But when you're working for a franchise corporate, you're kind of a little bit capped as to what you can do, and you have to make sure you hit your numbers and things like that. So at that point, your only option there is to try to build a culture of people who want to stay, because if anything, like, if somebody has one bad shift or one bad experience, or they don't like what you're doing, then they'll just walk out and go to the restaurant across the street. And then same thing there. They don't like that, walk out, go down there. Um, so you really, like, what else can you do is you're kind of forced to try to make it a great place to work and be the best manager you can be. Now, on the IT side, I think culture does play quite a bit of that as well, especially on the managed service provider side. There is unfortunately a bad rap of, especially some of the smaller ones, where it's, everyone's wearing tons of hats. There can be burnout. You're doing a little bit of everything, and there's no standard process. There's no, anything like that. You're just kind of like flying by the seat of your pants, and you're putting out fires all day, and you're not really, having any time to focus on the business. And I mean, like, it sounds a lot like the restaurant industry, doesn't it? So having that is it's super important. And that was kind of the my previous MSP. One of the things that I was looking for is more of a long-term strategy of, like, hey, I'm at the point in my career where I'm, kind of, not only do I want to build something, I've always been building something, but I want, a long-term roadmap and future, and what does that look like? And, kind of having that ownership mentality. And my previous MSP just didn't have that. And or if they did, they didn't communicate it. So that was, one of the things is, like, hey, looking at this, and my current one, we're an ESOP, which is employee owned, stock options. So every employee of this organization is an owner. So there's that owner mentality. There's that long term. The culture is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it is one of the core things that they believe in, is mission statements, and having accountability and ownership, and helping each other and things like that. I mean, we get coins, talking about our mission statement of do it with class, which is care, leadership, accountability, service, and speed. We get blocks that remind us, like, the core pillars of our organization. So, like, we're very, very culture focused, and that is exactly what I was looking for into moving to the next stage in my career.
Okay. So if I could kind of summarize, and you tell me if I'm getting the right takeaways, you stay where your needs are met and where you're happy and comfortable or have space to grow. And if that isn't the case, you looked for opportunities to meet those needs. And now that you're at a place where those needs are being met at the highest level, those types of things you're excited, so
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's about, like, nailing those needs for your team members.
Yep. Absolutely.
I love the tangible aspects of culture to keep people's minds in it. And I love when businesses actually invest in culture, because in the restaurant world, it's a little bit easier. The businesses kind of take on the culture of the manager, the person that's there the most. But you're in a work from home scenario, it sure appears,
Yep.
and that's an extra step, you know, to really do that. I think that's pretty neat and atypical.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger focuses, is, I think, around the COVID era, when they did have to go remote. That's kind of when they made the decision to um, kind of branch out a little bit, and find some remote workers. And there's a pretty, I think, it kind of really, it starts with the hiring process. It's definitely not easy to get hired here. There's a lot of vetting and things like that. And I'm sure you've heard the term culture fit. It's something that we do take very seriously, at this organization, to make sure that they're, part of the mission statement and things like that, and a good fit. And that doesn't mean, hey, they're fitting in and getting along with everybody. It's somebody that embodies the mission statement, and is going to move it forward, and doing things, daily stand-ups and weekly lunch and learns, and try to at least once a year get everyone out, because as much as you try to do the building and stuff virtually, to me, nothing beats that face-to-face interaction and just hanging out with people and your peers and getting to know them a little bit better. So trying for those sort of things definitely helps. But you're right, it is quite a bit easier in the restaurant. I mean, especially depending on the type of leader you are, in the trenches and earning the respect of your employees, because that's really what it feels like. I mean, after a really busy day, I mean, you're just been battling, you're in the trenches, and you've just survived it together, and having that camaraderie is something that's unmatched. I mean, just when everything's going right, it's super busy, but like drinks are being ran, food's being out, everyone's just on top of it. It's a beautiful thing.
You're absolutely right. I'm reminded of this. If I could go on a little bit of a tangent here and tell my craziest Domino's day for you.
Yeah, let's go.
So it was March of 2019, which was about when COVID lockdowns started happening. We started having people get sick, and have people getting pulled from stores and that type of thing, which is hard on operations. Domino's was doing a 50% online ordering week, which means the amount of sales that were happening in the week were really, really high. And it was the week, I believe, of no, this wasn't the case. And then we had an earthquake in Salt Lake City, like one of the highest recorded magnitude earthquakes in a significant amount of time. And the epicenter of the earthquake was in my area and one of my store's locations, and there was like this big sinkhole. It was like this whole deal.
Oh no.
We went, me and my boss, who's a friend of mine, went to the store that had the most damage, which was where the epicenter was. It wasn't damage to the store, but the one that needed damage control. You know what I mean? We spent, I think it was a 13-hour total day. And I think 9 straight of the hours were spent at the store. And it was the director over 50 stores in a location, the district, me over, the various area, every person we could possibly get into the store, the general manager. We did a record day in sales on a Wednesday by like 3 times the record, and you're absolutely right. Like at the end of the day, it wasn't, and this is all to tell the story to make your point, or to help make your point. At the end of the day, it wasn't like, oh, it was like, we just kicked ass.
Yeah.
And the culture feeling of like, yeah, that was insane. Because it was bolstered by the fact that we all did it together.
Yep.
And then you get to walk away from experiences like that with like a badge of honor of like, I know when the shit hits the fan, me and these people I can rely on, and that type of thing really, really matters. It makes a
100%.
difference for the long run.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, going same thing in the IT world. I mean, I'm in the cybersecurity, so if we're working like in incident response, for example, I mean, just being able to have other people that are willing to stay and help however they can, and being able to rely on them for delegating. Hey, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, and it not all being on you, and just having that team and executing things like that at a high level and a fast. Because time is of the essence. Like it's the same thing, man. It's like you just feel like, hey, we it sucked, but we got through it. We kicked some ass, and way to go. And it is, like you said, it's a badge of honor, and it just makes you feel proud to be part of the team.
And there's pressure there too. If people might be listening to this thinking like, well, how stressful is it really? There's pressure because if I imagine on the IT side, if you don't go quickly and you've got 1 million customers that are on the phones, they are not nice.
Mhm.
And if you get behind, then everybody becomes not nice. So there's an intense feeling of keeping up with the rush. Because if you get an hour behind, every phone that's calling isn't new sales, it's angry customers. And you have to deal with that. And it's not fists and bullets, you know what I mean? But like you're dealing with psychological stress and you're active. So I
Yep.
mean there's a serious feeling of like we're doing a thing here, and you're right. Um, so we're kind of getting into, we're still a little bit talking about your story, but we're kind of getting into some of the functions of things that go back and forth. And we're kind of doing a little bit of that juxtaposition. I want to ask you before we go all the way into the topic, if you could talk a little bit about good management you've seen and bad management you've seen, because you've been in both spaces where management isn't really taught.
Yep.
Managers in the restaurant industry largely are either good because of experience and tenure or because they have a really, really great team and system. And I think the same is true on the IT space. There's not like, restaurant management college. There's not IT service provider management college, right? And if you want to go to school for management, you typically don't then go into the restaurant industry. And if you go to school for management, you still need a bunch of knowledge gained to be effective in the IT space because it's such a technical field.
Yep.
So for those two reasons, and it's not against the restaurant industry and it's not against the IT industry, it's just those are complicated functions that make it this way. For those two reasons, management skill is often kind of something that it happens intrinsically in those two spaces. So you see good and bad, right? Um, Talk to me about good and bad management you've seen on both sides and what it looks like. And how
Man,
maybe how it's
that's
different in the
yeah,
same.
no, that's such a great question, and now it's like got the wheels turning here. So, first off, I think in both industries, like you said, they do get promoted because you're good at the task at hand, right? So in the restaurant, thinking about it, like you would have your best line cook who is, or the best cook who is just a fantastic at you know maybe fast orders, accurate, whatever things that you're looking at, your KPIs, right? Your order accuracy, how fast they're getting it to the window, cleaning, things like that. And all of a sudden you put them as manager. It's the same thing as if you take your best tech and hey, these are the guys who understand the ins and out of the tech, and maybe they have the most billable hours, or they can deep dive that topic. Well, now you're the manager of the tech team. Well, now those are two completely different skill sets. All right. Now you're in charge of overseeing the group of people, and you're not doing as much tech work, or you're not doing as much cooking, and your skills might not translate. And I think that definitely shows. I mean, one of the the general manager prior to me was, uh, I get along with him, but boy, was it trying times, just because he had a terrible management style, very micromanagey, very, this is what I say it goes, without being able, there's no collaboration, just doing ridiculous things, not understanding core business concepts like cost of goods and things like that. It's just, he was a really good bartender, very good with beer and good, talking with clients, or customers, but it didn't translate to the management side. And it was one of those where, well, he was tenured, so let's go. Same thing kind of on the IT side, is maybe you're great at the IT, but you're, hey, this is micromanaging, this is how you have to do it. Maybe you're, spending more time on the tech and you're not really good at the delegation, things like that. Whereas on the flip side, the people who are collaborative, who understand, hey, even though you're the manager and you're in charge, like you're all on the same team. It's just you have different positions, right? If you think about a football team, your quarterback, your receiver, your lineman, you're all on the same team, but you're doing drastically different things. So even though I am technically a manager, or somebody who is in charge, like I'm still part of the team, and we're working together to achieve the same results. So in that manner, rarely am like, hey, I'm above you, got to listen. Like, it's just collaborative and feeling them seen and heard, and working with them and getting to know them. But, also sometimes having the hard conversations is a must. And I think that's another thing on the manager side, is not willing to have those hard conversations or not knowing how to have them, can kind of, destroy that culture as well. But like you said, it's something that's not taught, but it's completely different skills that you need to have, because it's a different position.
Absolutely. I love you pointing out how that promoting happens in those two industries, because they're challenging industries that require a lot of know-how. And the people that get promoted, like you said, are the ones that are good, people that have the most billable hours because they're productive. They know it backwards and forwards, so they created efficiency beyond the average person. An assistant manager that gets promoted to a GM, or even a pizza maker that gets promoted to an assistant, or even a driver that gets promoted to, an inside staff. The driver was trustworthy enough to show up regularly for us to say, can you also do this, please, for more money? The pizza maker was consistent enough and made quality enough products where, okay, can you be in charge of other people doing this? And you just nailed it. Like, those skills don't translate. Going from the doer to the manager are two different things. And you have to be able to do, I think, to be a super effective manager. Now, you can be an effective manager with
Mhm.
limited do skills, but to be super duper effective, you've got to understand it well enough. But there's not none, but very few of the skills here translate. And really, the ones that do typically are intrinsic motivation and care, or the ability to make systems, or like time management, which are all kind of soft skills anyway. Um, it's a really, really great point. Um, is there anything else you want to add to that, or can I shift gears a little bit?
No, let's go. Let's keep going.
Awesome. So, one of the things you talked about, which is how your organization now is in the ESOP program. I think you said it was, could you ESOP?
Employee stock ownership program.
So I think one of the most important things for effective management and efficient businesses is putting the carrot in the right place. The motivator for the team to achieve or to have the behaviors that you want needs to be in the right place. Can you talk to me a little bit about why that's motivating for you? And then I want to talk a little bit about some things I've seen from a bonus structure standpoint on the restaurant side. And I want to ask you about whether or not this is one of those things that's just
Yeah.
universal.
Well, I mean, really, as much as I love my job and love the team, at the end of the day, everyone's after, like, it's money. I mean, that's how you're paying your bills, and paying to do fun stuff, and getting things, and like, you need the money, right? So, from an ESOP perspective, though, it's the ultimate ownership. I mean, I have ownership stake in my company, and what I do, my actions directly result to my longevity. I mean, if I don't do the right things, and the business fails, then that's my future, right? Where on the flip side, obviously, I'm very motivated in doing, like, the more that, the best that we do and the more we grow, well, then that's more money we make. And it is more of a long-term thing, because again, when you're, ESOP, you're looking at, like, hey, you're locked in until you're retired. So it's still like, it's not immediate satisfaction, and there's obviously other things that you can get that immediate satisfaction over, but you're really thinking, like, long term, and having a future plan. So there's really not much more motivating than, like, hey, like, I have ownership in this, and what I do every day matters to the future of not only the company but me. I mean, that's you. If you
Yeah.
don't have that, well, you're working for a paycheck, and now your motivations might be promotion, might be more money, but I feel like on
More
of all of
time.
that is short time, is short term, right? It's not that long term vision.
Sounds really intelligent the way they built it out. It motivates you to do behaviors that are good for the long-term health of the business, so that it's worth the most when you retire, when
Yep.
it's going to be valuable for you. where for them, they want the business to grow in value like Coca-Cola over, they want it to continue to become more and more consistent, or,
Yep.
but have some kind of consistency and reliability to it. Sometimes if the bonus structure is put in the wrong place, it could, and I think we see a lot of this in the startup space where you're setting up for a merge, or you're setting up for an acquisition. So you're trying to shoot the moon. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
like putting all of the effort and time into, let's show how valuable we are right now. And
Or even that, the first MSP that I worked at, and this was only in place for about a year. They were, they were still on the newer side, trying to get their foot, but their bonus structure was based off of billable hours. So, once you achieved your FTE rates, so like not only your salary, but your share of the utilities, healthcare, like your fully utilized cost, then once you hit above that, then there would be kind of like a profit sharing, like, hey, you get this many billable hours, you get this exponential calculation. Sounds great, right? Well, me coming in as the new person, there's 3 techs. Well, the 2 techs above me, they didn't want their paycheck to be less. Like they wanted more money. And it's not on them. I'm not angry about them at all. Like anybody would do this. So they're taking the easy tickets and the quick fixes and things like that. And I would only get like maybe new setups or things that took longer or things that they didn't want to deal with. So I really wasn't learning or progressing because like I'm not getting anything. And I'd be sitting there bored and being like, hey, do you have anything for me? And they're like, ah, no, I really don't, because they didn't want to give me their quick tickets because that means less money out of their paycheck. So in that point, like the bonus structure is kind of a negative thing because now it's negatively affecting the team. We're not growing and it's just,
well, and it's strangling the business because there's somebody that
Yep.
could do the work faster,
Mm-hmm.
and then more work total could be done, which would increase the sales of the business. But
Yep.
because of the way the bonus structure is set up, the behaviors of the team members don't match the long-term goals of the business.
Yep.
But in a long-term profit sharing model, which is what you have, the values are aligned. I want my business to be worth as much as it can possibly be worth over time, and you want your bank account or whatever, your personal net worth, to be safe and valuable in the long run.
Yep.
They align. I've seen it go both ways in the restaurant industry, and I'll draw the juxtaposition now. So there were times that the bonus structure for general managers was set up in profit share, and then there were times where it was set up in hitting a goal or a metric. So things like you make X amount of money if you have this service time, motivating speed in service delivery, right? More customers, or quicker delivery to the customers, more sales. Seems reasonable. If you have this much variance in your food, meaning ideal, or your food costs, meaning you portion properly and you didn't waste, that type of thing, you get your bonus. Seems reasonable. Make the right amount of food, X, Y, and Z. You make the right amount of profit. That should be in alignment. But the problem is when those goals are set up, not related to the outcome, or to the behavior, but directly to the outcome, what people start to do is behaviors that straight to the line achieve the outcome, not behaviors that long-term achieve the outcome, which can lead to different things. So for instance, if you want to have really good service times, you may decide that you don't want to do deliveries to the parts of your delivery area that are far away.
Yep.
You may decide that you are going to send more deliveries together because it'll be faster in the short run, but the quality of the product's going to go down across all of them versus allowing it to be slightly longer, and the pizza's getting there, meaning sending more drivers, so you're not getting all the deliveries out of the store, or whatever, but the quality of the product's better. So you're losing customer satisfaction by hitting the goal, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we delivered them all faster, but the pizzas were out of the store in a wet box for 25 minutes. The customer got it. Yeah, they got it 2 minutes quicker than they would have. So your number feels a lot better to your ego, but the customer wasn't happy with the product, and the likelihood that they order again is less. With the food, or maybe, hey, I'm just going to cancel these orders that are going to be late. Fuck them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If somebody really wants to, and I believe me, you'll see it if you have people that aren't
Yep.
that are not motivated properly. You know what I mean? Similarly, with the food, I'd see people ringing up food they didn't make. So it looked like we were supposed to use this much, but we actually used this much, or
Yep.
intentionally under portioning so they could get their bonus, and delivering a less quality product to the customer, reducing the total sales of the store on whole. All of those things are behaviors that are motivated by the goal. Whereas if the goal is make as much money as possible, then you get managers that are looking at, well, if I sell these coupons versus these coupons, the total food cost is less. Or if I staff these people here, or if I use more drivers instead of managers, my total labor cost is less. And now they're thinking about the behaviors they could do that make them more money, but it also makes the business more money.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to send your leaders into the store or into the department, and the teaching that you give them, they're grateful for it, because you just taught them how to run their business better, which means they get to make more money because your bonus structure is set up properly. So I think that's like, to kind of summarize the juxtaposition of this particular thing, I think incentives is one of the most important one of the most important things to predict behaviors. And if you want an efficient business, having well set up incentives and incentive programs, I think goes between the two things, and probably goes across all industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, so yeah, lots of parallels there, because the other thing too, as a manager, is you have to teach those behaviors to, let's say you're not an ESOP, going back to the restaurant industry, or just a help desk. If you don't have that, like, what is your incentive outside of your paycheck or career growth? Like, you kind of have to be self-driven and self-sufficient, but your pizza maker who's making, 10, 12, $15 an hour, depending on where you're at, like, what's their incentive for following that? Because they don't get to see any of it. So trying to build that team and build the culture, and kind of, some sort of transparency, or what you can do kind of at a store level to increase that, is important, because those are the people that you're relying on, and the team that you're building on, that benefits you. So it's yeah, definitely have to know how. Again, it's a skill that doesn't just because you're good at tech or good at cooking, it doesn't translate up.
I think that transparency thing you just touched on is another core behavior that results in efficient businesses. And I kind of want to dive into that too, because I've seen on the restaurant side, and I'm not going to talk as much about the tech side on this one because I don't have as much experience, and I don't want to give any impression that I'm whatever. On the restaurant side, I saw operations that would share P&Ls with their general managers, and share profit margins, and share the depth of the detail of the numbers, so that they had the understanding of how they were impacting their businesses. And then I saw also the opposite of that, where they were very private with the numbers, where they were private with the profit, where they were private with how those things worked, and it resulted in less educated teams. I was always much more attracted to the strategy of being transparent and open with the information. And I always thought, if you have a team member that sees the profit and then doesn't think to themselves, well, I could grow to achieve that for myself, but instead has an envious or a negative, like, oh, they shouldn't be making all that. And I thought, well, that's an indicator of that's a toxic team member. That's
Yep.
probably a different problem. So from my perspective, at least, and this is on the restaurant industry, and again, I want to ping pong it over to you to kind of talk about what you've seen on the IT side. Is transparency one of them? And should, if the fear is, well, I don't want to be transparent because what about these negative people? If that's what you're doing it for, the root cause is you need to figure out how to handle and manage toxic team members.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the specific example I have on that is like during closing time, they would put certain things in like these takeout containers, and they were using these. And what hey, like we should be using the plastic containers. They don't take much time to go through the dishwasher at all. You're still able to close. Like it doesn't really affect your closing time at all. If not, a couple minutes here, and like showing them like that was a transparent of like, hey, you do this every day. This is how much it costs, and extrapolate that over a month. I mean, like, look how much money that we are throwing away just by utilizing these large takeout containers when we don't need to. And that was kind of just a transparent and eye opening because, again, if you're not in that manager position, you're probably not thinking that. Like, you're just, hey, I'm just trying to do my job and get out of here and all of that. So, I mean, that was kind of an effective thing. But from the tech side as well, absolutely. I mean, again, speaks volumes.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
cut
Yes.
before you go in? I want to, if you're the general manager and your franchisee or your corporation isn't sharing the profit numbers and the details with you, then you may not know enough to be able to have that type of conversation with your
It's true.
closing team or your team members. And that's just to, it's to kind of help support, make your point of the idea that if you are transparent with the numbers as a leader, you give your managers agency to help people understand the why behind what they're asking you to do. And I know if I ask somebody to scrub the walls with degreaser, I'm like, hey, here's this, scrub the wall. They're like, fuck this motherfucker. I'm gonna scrub the wall. This dude's just a prick.
Yeah.
He's asking me to do this stupid task because he's a fucking short dude with a power issue. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
if I was like, hey, there's grease on the walls because the oven and the oven is constantly producing grease from the pizzas. It gets into the air, and the hood can't pull it all. When it cakes onto the walls, it's really hard to clean after months of it. But if we do it every month, it stays shiny and clean in here, so people feel like they actually want to be in here, and it's easy to maintain. Would you please take this and clean the walls? I look over and you got fools going after it. They're just
Yep.
like, oh my god, they're hey, I need a step stool. Where's the step stool? And people are taking it serious. Whereas if you don't take the time to be transparent, they're like, fuck this dude,
Yeah.
and they're back there on their phone watching Netflix. So anyway, your good point. Go into the tech side of it.
Yeah, from the tech side of things, it can kind of have that as well. Especially looking at like things like your wage. So let's say the current MSP that's we're all on an ESOP. So every month, one of our lunch and learns is basically P&L and numbers and what goes into that. And again, it's super motivating because it knows like I can directly affect that, and everyone in their role can directly affect that. Now let's take it back to previous MSP who was a little bit more closed off. And again, not saying that that's right or wrong. It's your business, and there isn't a one way to do this. But things that it can lead into is just that like I was questioning some sort of the things on there because I'm like, this seems like we're losing money off of it because I know, like, again, with that manager mindset and having worked in the restaurant and seeing the whole picture, I'm like, I know how much I make. Like, I know what my, fully realized cost would be. And I kind of know like the contract, like I can see the billable hours and things like that. And I'm like, this isn't adding up. This isn't making sense. But I didn't have enough of the numbers to fully know that. And like when I, made the thing like, hey, this isn't, making sense. Or when I was scoping out work and was like, hey, this is how long it's going to take me. That's what it is. And then I'd get back like, well, we can't charge that. They're not going to pay that. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is how much it's going to cost in the labor. And then not doing it, it was like, dude, how I don't like, there was a lot of like I didn't understand, and it was hard for me to fully realize or see it. And maybe there was stuff behind the scenes that I didn't know. I mean, or maybe I was right, I'll never know, but I was questioning it. And again, going to your place, like not so much the toxic, but it was like what is the point of even me doing this? Like, if we're losing money on it, why am I going out and trying to do this service or build this service and like all of, all of that? And other than like the self motivation of wanting to do that or seeing that longer term. But I mean, how many questions is it raising? And then it goes into the whole motivation thing, or why would I do this when I, could just keep doing your easy tickets and things like that?
Absolutely. You touched on something that I think, and I know we're getting short on time. You touched on something that I think is another core important function of business efficiency, and it is understanding the value of certain behaviors. Um, if you don't know how much it costs to make a small pepperoni pizza, then you don't know if you should even be selling small pepperoni pizzas. And you've got to know whether or not it makes sense to do something in your business if you're doing it. And it can be really hard to get like you said, the buy-in, if you're looking at something and that transparency piece, if you're not even able to have the conversation of like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe we need to make a change, then you're like, well, where's my energy going? And that can be really demoralizing. So transparency, uh, what was the first one we just talked about transparency. The first one was oh shoot.
Like you say, the effectiveness, like I guess the knowledge, the skills, being able to manage the people.
Manage the people, and then the
Yep.
structures,
Yep.
the bonus structures. I think the last one, and I want to be really cognizant of our time here because I know you have a hard stop. The last one that I think is important is understanding your cost of goods and understanding your cost for delivery of services, which I see so often in now. And we're doing a juxtaposition to see if these are effective across all businesses in terms of like some of the most effective behaviors. If you don't know that it's not cost effective for you to be doing something, that quite literally is the quickest way to blow your business efficiency. If you're spending a bunch of time on something that's costing you money, you should be spending the time on other things.
Yep.
And I think so often businesses have this grand idea of what their business is going to look like. Like, I am really grateful to work with some local businesses in Toledo that are on the smaller side and are kind of starting. And a lot of the times they don't know that they should be breaking down every step of what they're doing into a cost, whether it be the amount of driving time they're doing, whether it be the amount of their time that goes into it, whether it be the actual cost of a good, $2 for the cheese on the pizza, whatever, however much the actual elements of the box costs 10 cents, whatever. They see how much they want to charge. They see what other businesses charge.
Yeah, they'll go on Reddit and it says you have to charge 250 per user. So you're like, okay, well, I have to charge 250 per user, but why? What going into it? And from a restaurant aspect, it's very easy because a lot of it is tangible. Like you said, it's I have to make this food order, I have to make this paper product order. So like the cheese, the pepperonis, the napkins, the box, it all costs so tangible. And then obviously you have your labor costs. But when you going from like IT, especially a managed service provider, at that point your cost of goods, like it's your licensing and your labor. And there's obviously other overhead and things like that. But why time tracking is important, even if you're on an all you can eat. Like, well, maybe you're losing money because they're paying for X amount of this labor, and if you break your labor hours down, like, is it enough? And yeah, you have to think about all that stuff for all your licensing and what your price and your cost. And like, it's super easy to do for hardware. Laptop cost me 1,000, I sell it for 1,200. That's you got your margin in there, you got your price and your cost. But it's not as easy to do for your labor.
Definitely not as easy, and especially things that go across time. Okay, we're in the last 5 minutes, which means we're going to start wrapping up here. Josh, thank you for sharing so much of your experience and your knowledge with us. I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we'll do a wrap. You said something that piqued my ears, which was actual realized cost. That is new to me. I've never heard of it, and I'm sure that it's a tremendously valuable statistic and way to measure team member efficiency and behavior. Could you give us a little bit of an explanation on what actual realized cost is?
Yeah. So if you're my employee and your salary is $40,000, you don't cost me $40,000. I also need to count in like what percentage of my health insurance am I covering you? Am I matching your 401k? How much, are like in my office or whatever, you're in an office, like if I have 12 employees, dividing all office facilities by 12, like what is your portion of, keeping you like within the office, electricity, everything that goes into having you as an employee, incentives, taxes, all of that stuff. It's
Sure.
not 40,000. It is a much greater number. So having that fully realized cost is again going into your cost of labor and how you should be looking and pricing things. Because if
And
I
you
base it off of 40K, it's not accurate.
and you use that as a metric to help team members understand their own efficiencies?
I mean, well, it comes down to like how you're pricing things, but yeah, just having that kind of understanding of things like that too is like, hey, if you have an incentive, why don't like, let's say that your incentive is you have to make 2x your salary or 2.5x your salary. Well, you might come to me and say, well, like, aren't we making profit if I make $41,000? Well, no, we have all these other costs and everything. So like our break even point isn't until we hit 1.7, right? And then now at that point we're profitable and I can share that. So again, finding that and having that transparency is going to help with all your cost of goods, but providing being able to have that explanation. And then now you as the employee, you're like, I didn't think about that. Like you hopefully are a human who likes to learn and think about things, and you kind of feel like a little bit smarter, and you feel like you have some insider knowledge of how the bait, how the sausage is made, really, right? So you can lead to that incentivize, and you have that understanding.
Awesome. Josh, is there anything you'd like to share with the Business Strategy Roundtable audience uh, in these last waning moments?
No, I think again having these effective behaviors, regardless of what business you're in, there's a lot of this that translates. Especially coming from a managed service provider world, I can teach people what buttons to put on a keyboard, but those soft skills that you gain from having that restaurant or retail experience are something that is very hard to teach. So I'm very open, and if you're in that industry and you're looking to get into IT or other industries, make sure you lean on that experience. Soft skills is needed in almost every business on that. So yeah, realize what you have, and thanks for having me on. I love these kind of talks.
Yeah, man, we have a lot of fun. Josh, thank you so much. Thanks to the folks who joined us today. I believe that we're going to be having an impromptu reschedule with Jason Whitehurst this Friday, diving into the cybersecurity gap with SMBs. And if you haven't checked out the Try Unity Strategies website and our events page, we've got all sorts of awesome ways to get business and career strategy questions answered live and for free. So take advantage of that. Josh, thanks again, and happy Monday, everybody.
Yeah.
See you next time.